Step by step, the longest march can be won, can be won. Many stones can form an arch, singly none, and by union what we will can be accomplished still. Drops of water turn a mill, singly none, singly none. Step by step, the longest march can be won. Many stones can form an arch, singly none, and by union what we will can be accomplished still. Drops of water turn a mill, singly none, singly none.
Good morning. I want to welcome you to this online service of Neshoba Unitarian Universalist Church in Cordova, Tennessee, the church in the meadow, as I like to call it. I am the Reverend Beth Lefever, pleased and privileged to be the minister of this wonderful congregation, and I am so very glad that you have joined with us this morning. For our opening words, I would again like to share with you the thoughts of A. Powell Davies, minister of All Souls, Unitarian in Washington, D.C. from 1944 to 1947. He wrote, "The years of all of us are short, our lives precarious. Our days and nights go hurrying on, and there is scarcely time to do the little that we might. Yet we find time for bitterness, for petty treason and evasion. What can we do to stretch our hearts enough to lose their littleness? Here we are, all of us, all upon this planet, bound together in a common destiny, living our lives between the briefness of the daylight and the dark. Kindred in this, each lighted by the same precarious flickering flame of life. How does it happen that we are not kindred in all things else? How strange and foolish are these walls of separation that divide us. Let us be in worship together." And now our Director of Religious Exploration and Seminarian, Sarah Osborne, will light our chalice.
Our chalice lighting words come to you this morning from Sarah Eileen Lawal. Out of the flames of fear, we rise with courage of our deepest convictions to stand for justice, inclusion, and peace. Out of the flames of scrutiny, we rise to proclaim our faith with hope to heal a fractured and hurting world. Out of the flames of doubt, we rise to embrace the mystery, wonder, and awe of all there is and all there is yet to be. Out of the flames of hate, we rise with the force of love that celebrates our shared humanity. Out of the flames, we rise. May it be so.
Please join me in reciting the affirmation of covenant. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve human need, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine, thus do we covenant with each other and with God.
Good morning. Today we have another story about Abraham Lincoln, because you just can't have too many of those. This is Abe Lincoln Crosses a Creek, a tall, thin tale, introducing his forgotten frontier friend. Now here's an old tale of two boys who got into more trouble than a couple of bear cubs in a candy store. I like it so well, I've asked my friend John to help with the pictures. It takes place in this green Kentucky valley in 1816. That's Knob Creek down there. Life was hard for a lot of folks then. And in a few years, all the cares of America would fall on the shoulders of one tall, thin man. But it's 1816 now, and he's only 7. There he is, bringing in some wood for his mother. You've probably guessed his name. Abraham Lincoln. He'll grow up to become our 16th president. There's another boy here, too, sitting on a rock waiting for Abe. His name is Benjamin Austin Gallagher. Austin for short. Now I can just hear you grumbling. Oh, he's not in my history book. What do I care about him? Well, Austin is Abe's first friend. He's 3 years older and as proud of Abe as a big brother. Abe's legs were long. His arms were long. Why, even his ears were long, Austin would say later. And when it came to being smart, he was way yonder ahead of me. Now, where was I? Oh, Austin's just waved at his friend, remember? Hello there, Austin, Abe calls out. Hey, I saw some partridges down by Knob Creek yesterday. Let's go find them. Don't go near the creek, Abe's mama Nancy calls. It's been raining fierce, and the creek's all swollen. We won't, ma'am, Austin and Abe chime together, and they scurry off directly there, wearing nothing but their long homespun shirts. Here's Knob Creek, its waters rushing through the limestone rocks. I'd be scared to cross it, wouldn't you? I saw the birds right on the other side, Abe says. Let's cross over. Abe's only thinking about birds, not about the raging water before him. After all, he's only 7. Not a great leader yet with the Union to save. Why, he's barely learned his letters. I don't know, says Austin. That water's pretty deep and we don't know how to swim. We can cross over on that log, says Abe. Easy. All right, says Austin. And putting one foot in front of another, he inches his way across the log. Careful there. I made it, Austin calls. Let's all clap for Austin. Yay! Now it's Abe's turn. Uh-oh. I sense trouble coming, don't you? Abe takes a big breath and begins. His feet are slippery. The log is slippery. He inches across, slowly, slowly. Uh-oh. He's dizzy. He looks down. Alas, alack. Oh, dear. Splash. Hold on 1 minute. How do we know it happened like that? Because maybe it didn't. I mean, would Abe and Austin really have walked across a log over that whirlpool? They weren't that foolish, were they? No, I'm almost sure those boys would have crawled. Let's try that again. All right. Austin stoops down, puts both hands on the log and holds on tight. He pulls himself across to the other side. How about we give him some encouragement? Yee-haw! Oh, louder. Woo! Hooray! Austin is safe. Now it's Abe's turn. Uh-oh. I'm afraid this isn't much better. Look, Abe's in trouble from the start. His stomach feels queasy. His head's all a whir. He's got halfway and he's stuck. Don't look down, nor up, nor sideways, calls Austin. Look straight ahead, look at me. But Abe's getting dizzy. He looks down. Alas, alack, oh dear, head over heels. Splash. Wait, where's Austin? Now, John, don't let him wander off at the most important moment of his life. There he is. 'Cause he's Austin, Abe's first friend, loyal and true to the day he died. What's that you're saying? Abe's still in the water while I'm rambling on? His head went under again? Wait, I'm trying to remember what happens next. Pretty sure Austin doesn't say, "Don't worry, Abe, I'll save you, 'cause I know you're on Earth for a great purpose." No, I think Austin just leaps into action. He pulls Abe out by his shirt tail. Or maybe he grabs a big sycamore branch or a fishing pole. We'll let John decide which sketch to paint. Abe's on land at last, but he looks almost dead. Austin pounds him, and the water comes gushing out. Abe finally looks up, opens his eyes. "Oh, what a relief. I thought you were a goner," says Austin. "I'm mighty grateful," says Abe. "Better not tell anyone," Austin says, "or we'll get a whipping." "I won't," says Abe, "but I won't forget this as long as I live." Then they stretch out on the rocks and bake in the sun till they're dry. Now we could end our story here. Two happy friends in the sunshine long ago. But I'll bet you want to know what happens next. Well, the Lincolns soon moved to Indiana. And after a while, Abe Lincoln became president and went to the White House. Whoa, wait a minute. You got it wrong. Austin wasn't there by the president's side. Put him back in Knob Creek, where he belongs, raising a family, riding a mule through the woods, telling stories about his first great friend, until he dies at the ripe old age of 92, resting under a gravestone reading Lincoln's Playmate. For the truth is, Abe and Austin never saw each other again. But like he promised, Abe didn't forget Austin. In the midst of the Civil War, he was heard to say, so the story goes, that he would rather see Austin Gallagher again than any other man living. I like to think that's true, don't you? Well, we're coming to the last page. About all that's left is to remind you of the moral of the story. Listen to your mother and don't go near Swollen Creek. What? Oh, you don't think that's the point? A mite weak, like Abe, a tad thin? Well, how about this? Remember Austin Gallagher, because what we do matters. even if we don't end up in history books. Yes, let's remember Austin Gallagher, who one day, long ago, when no one else was there to see, saved Abe Lincoln's life. And without Abraham Lincoln, where would we be? But that's a story for another day, because ours at last is done.
Last week, our new board chair, Christy Hogan, shared thoughts about drinking from wells we did not dig. Drinking from wells we did not dig. Getting vital sustenance from the efforts of those who came before. We have just kicked off our annual pledge campaign, by which we ask our members and friends to pledge some amount of money to the sustaining, fortifying, and strengthening of this church. We are the beneficiaries of those who came before, those who labored to dig the wells from which we now drink. It is incumbent upon us, then, that we continue the labor, the effort, the digging of wells from which we may continue to drink, but more from which those who come after will be able to drink. It is time for our weekly offering, and we are so grateful to all of you who donate to Neshoba. But maybe even more right now, we are grateful to you for pledging your support through the coming year. You don't have to be wealthy to pledge. Even small amounts add up. Please send your pledge form in, or even just drop a note in the mail to the church stating your pledge amount for this year. It matters. It matters. And we are grateful. Our first reading is actually a video by our old friend, singer, songwriter, and satirist Roy Zimmerman, who has been with us here in concert at Neshoba, I believe 3 or 4 times now. This song is different from Roy's usual irreverent, fully on target, and very funny pieces. This song is haunting. This is what he says about it. 6 years ago, I wrote a song called DWB, Driving While Black. I wrote it after Eric Garner was choked to death by Staten Island police as he repeated the phrase, "I can't breathe," 11 times before slipping into unconsciousness. But the song is not about that one incident. It's a song about the ongoing struggle for equality under the law within a structurally racist justice system. In the wake of the murders by police of Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Rayshard Brooks, and the worldwide movement their deaths have inspired, Melanie and I knew we wanted to present DWB again, but this time as a dialogue, to balance the voice of white authority with the pain of Black suffering. Our dear friend Clovis Lewis graciously supplied the second voice by way of his gorgeous cello playing. Please listen.
I pulled you over 'cause you were speeding. Do you know how black you were going? Had you clocked at 50 miles per black in a 45 blacks per hour zone, I'll be right black when I've run your license. Just sit black and relax. Step out of the vehicle, son. Come with me. Gonna book you on ADWB. You put your hands up so naturally. I thought you had a gun up there, hidden somewhere in midair. You said don't shoot. You tried to flee, which I took as an attack. Shot you 5 times in the back. I chased you down 'cause you had a pocket knife. Thought you might be joining the Swiss Army, or stealing Skittles, or passing 20s, or otherwise compromising Western civilization. Oh, you can't breathe. No, you can't breathe. You can't breathe. You That's what they all say. Come quietly. I'll book you on ADOAWB.
For our second reading, I again want to share with you from the book Southern Witness, Unitarians and Universalists in the Civil Rights Era by the Reverend Gordon Gibson, author, civil rights activist, and Unitarian Universalist minister. Healthy, engaged, constructive religious communities come in a variety of sizes. Size can matter. Congregations so small that they constantly teeter on the edge of dissolution are unlikely to have the capacity to do much or to facilitate their members being socially engaged. But many of the religious communities whose stories we have visited were not large. Even in the congregations with membership numbers in the hundreds, a great portion of the most engaged social justice work was carried out by a relatively small subset. And sometimes large membership numbers can diminish rather than increase social engagement, either by focusing narrowly inward on congregational issues or by delegating social engagement to church staff rather than involving members. The size of the religious community mattered less than its essence. If the congregation understood itself as a religious community existing and working in a societal context, its members actively noticed what was going on in the wider community and found places to live out their values. We have explored stories of both institutions and individuals because both are important. The institutions set a tone, established an outlook and a range of expectation. Often, individuals responded to those messages by taking action, empowered and enabled by the institution. Roy Zimmerman and Gordon Gibson, two of my favorite people, and each in their own way powerful in their work for social justice. We can be well nourished by their efforts and the efforts of others like them, though I must say there's no one quite like either one of them. We can be nourished and inspired, motivated and moved, as we must be, for the events of our world, our nation, and our community demand it. And our faith tradition and the principles by which we live out our faith demand it. I do not use the word demand lightly. We are at a place and a time where we must give more than voice to our principles, to the urgent and critical needs that are all around us. And believe me, I am addressing these words to no one more than myself. We Unitarian Universalists no longer have the luxury of putting off jumping into the fray, or the various frays, throughout Memphis, the country, and the world. We no longer have the luxury of encouraging others to painfully stand up for right instead of doing so ourselves. Did I say I am vigorously and adamantly addressing these words to myself first and most of all? I do put off getting involved. I'm tired. I'm busy. It's dangerous. And whatever other excuses I find to leave the battles to others. But that's not who I want to be as a person or as a faith leader, as a minister. I want to instead work to live up to the principles and ideals of this unique and demanding faith tradition. 2 weeks ago, I somewhat reluctantly attended a virtual online course of ministry days and General Assembly, both of which would have been held in Providence, Rhode Island, but for the pandemic. I would have been somewhat reluctant to travel to Providence for the event, too, for I have been somewhat ambivalent about the direction I have seen our association going the last several years. It has been messy, as we have navigated a changing focus from a white patriarchal hierarchy within our association, and yes, those words are uncomfortable for me even to say, to an association of far more diverse leadership and activity, and a far more forceful and intense call for action in the social justice arena. I say even me because I have been active in civil rights efforts for decades and have always thought of myself as enlightened, understanding, and committed to the cause. But do we ever get to a place where we no longer have room to grow, to learn, to change? Not me, apparently, because I keep running into pockets of resistance within myself which surprise and sadden me and make me feel ashamed. And through which, if I am doing my work, I learn and grow and change. The messiness of change within the UUA has been one of those pockets of resistance for me. A few mistakes have been made along the way, I think, and assumptions made and judgments rendered and all the usual stuff typical of institutions in time of cultural discord. And I have been impatient, making my own assumptions and judgments rather than bearing down and committing to the work of an association I have long appreciated and a faith tradition I love. It was as tiring attending General Assembly and ministry days via technology as it often is attending in person. It was at least as tiring and harder in some ways because it was more difficult to get caught up in the inner energy and spirit of GA online that ultimately always occurs, at least for me, when attending in person, no matter my initial reluctance. At the beginning of this GA, at the opening worship, with its rich and beautiful Native American rituals and songs sung in Spanish, I thought to myself, I don't think I could do this. I'm having trouble finding myself here. Maybe it's time I move on and make way for a younger generation of UU clergy. Not to worry, doubt is alive and well in most ministers, at least some of the time. By the end of the week, having recognized and processed several pockets of resistance within myself and getting caught up in the whole of it, the wisdom of the speakers, the passion of those committed to the many complex needs of our faith, our culture, and our world, I was saying to myself, maybe I can. I think I can, and I want to. That was good and exciting realization for me. I want to because injustice abounds, especially for people of color and the poor. I want to because greed is overcoming right in ever-growing and increasingly damaging ways. I want to because our beautiful, glorious planet is on the brink of extinction and we need to step up and save it now. I want to because I owe it to George Floyd. I want to because I owe it to Breonna Taylor and Botham Jean and Alton Sterling, Michael Brown, 12-year-old Tamir Rice, and the list goes on, as we know. I want to because I owe it to all those who have been enslaved and their descendants who continue to be mistreated, abused, lynched, and given substandard opportunities to learn and thrive and make their way. A commonly proclaimed excuse for continued prejudice and oppression is, well, I never owned a slave. I never mistreated anyone. Yes, you did. We all did. Any of us who has benefited from white privilege, and that's most if not all of us who are white, has had a hand in the oppression of people of color. Martin Luther King said, an individual has not started living until he can rise above the narrow confines of his own individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of all humanity. Any of us who has not understood why Confederate statues and the Confederate flag have to go, should never have been in the first place, has had a hand in it. Dr. King said, rarely do we find men who willingly engage in hard, solid thinking. There is an almost universal quest for easy answers and half-baked solutions. Nothing pains some people more than having to think. Any of us who has seen injustice and not decried it has had a hand in it. Dr. King said, whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. This is the interrelated structure of reality. Any of us who has not objected to the government proclamation of Nathan Bedford Forrest Day in our own state has had a hand in it. Tomorrow, July 13th, was to have been Nathan Bedford Forrest Day in Tennessee. Since 1969, the Tennessee governor has been tasked with proclaiming 6 separate days as days of commemoration, 3 of which were related to the Confederacy. It was just this year, just this summer, that the state legislature passed a bill ending that appalling little chore for our governor. Nathan Bedford Forrest Day? Forrest was a slave trader and the leader of the Ku Klux Klan. As a Confederate major general in the Civil War, he was responsible for the Fort Pillow massacre here in Tennessee, in which close to 300 Union troops, most of them black, and some of them reportedly attempting to surrender, were killed. He was a bad guy, not a man to be commended. What is wrong with us? Dr. King said, our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Equality, justice, and compassion matter. Peace, liberty, and justice for all matters. The worth and dignity of every person matters. The interdependent web matters. Our faith tradition, which uplifts all these things, matters. And now it is for us to put brain and muscle and voice and body and heart into the principles around which our faith is built. Speaking to myself again. Ours is not a casual faith tradition, though many of us tend to treat it casually. It is not a casual faith, but rather a demanding one. Let us live up to its demands in whatever ways we can, sending money to organizations fighting for the causes, writing letters, calling legislators, educating ourselves, and emptying those pockets of resistance which plague us and which excuse us. Let us live up to this faith in which we weekly proclaim love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. Let us live up to this unique, demanding, and saving faith. We all have a lot of work to do. Amen. Let us change pace now and take a few moments to be quiet in the figurative arms of a yet immense world, a profound world, an amazingly and ceaselessly beautiful world even now. Let us take a few moments to recall that which has moved us in these past days or weeks, that which has beckoned us to great depths of emotion within the silence of our own hearts. Let us take a few moments to consider how we are called by all that moves us, how the world and its peoples calls to us, and how we might respond. Let us take a few moments to acknowledge that which calls to us, to commit to our response, and to be grateful. Amen. And until next week, blessed, blessed be.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going, but we know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. It will be hard.